Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Your Honor, we stand here today in this solemn courtroom, where the scales of justice hang in delicate balance, waiting to tip toward truth or forever remain skewed by deception and tragedy. Look around you, members of the jury. This is not merely a room of wood and stone. It is the sanctuary of morality, the last bastion where human lives are weighed against actions, where the fragile line between right and wrong is drawn with the indelible ink of evidence. Today, we confront a story that pierces the heart of our society, a story of unchecked power, of misplaced authority, of a life extinguished not by fate or accident, but by the hand of one who appointed herself judge, jury, and executioner. Imagine, if you will, the pursuit of justice as the very foundation of our nation. From the founding fathers who penned declarations of liberty to the civil rights marchers who demanded equality under the law, we Americans have always believed that no one is above the rules, that vigilante impulses must be restrained, lest chaos reign. Yet here we are, examining a case where ego overrode reason, where a young woman with no badge, no training, no legal authority, decided that her judgment superseded that of trained professionals. This is a tale that forces us to question, what happens when ordinary citizens, fueled by a dangerous mix of fear, righteousness, and perhaps deeper biases, take the law into their own hands? What happens when a minor traffic mishap escalates into irreversible tragedy because one person refused to stand down? Members of the jury, justice demands accountability. It demands that we confront uncomfortable truths about human nature, the allure of control, the psychology of fear turning into aggression, the moral blindness that can afflict even those who see themselves as good Samaritans. Morality is not subjective here. It is etched in our laws, in our consciences. Today, we present the evidence not to sensationalize pain, but to honor a life lost, a grandfather, a father figure, a man whose final moments were marked by confusion and terror at the hands of a stranger wielding deadly force. Kenneth Herring deserved better. His family deserves closure, and society deserves a verdict that reaffirms. No one gets to play God on the streets of Georgia. As we lay out the exhibits before you, piece by piece, remember this: the law is our shield against anarchy. When it is ignored, lives shatter. Let us begin, with heavy hearts but unwavering resolve, to examine the undeniable facts of this profound tragedy. The evidence, presenting the case. Members of the jury, let us turn now to the events of May 7th, 2019, in Clayton County, Georgia, a day that began ordinarily but descended into nightmare through a series of choices that no one forced upon the defendant. Picture the scene: a busy intersection near Clarkston, where traffic flows relentlessly under the Georgia sun. Kenneth Herring, a 62-year-old black man, a devoted grandfather known for his hard-working spirit and gentle nature, is behind the wheel of his Dodge Dakota pickup truck. Witnesses would later describe him as a family man, someone who doted on his grandchildren, who left playful voicemail messages, who embodied the quiet strength of a life well lived despite its challenges. But on this day, something went terribly wrong inside Mr. Herring's body. Evidence presented in court revealed that he was suffering from a severe medical episode, likely diabetic shock, a condition that can cause profound disorientation, confusion, and impaired judgment without any fault of alcohol or drugs. Toxicology reports confirmed no substances in his system. He was sober, yet his body betrayed him. Imagine the terror of that moment for Mr. Herring. Vision blurring, thoughts scattering, the world spinning as low blood sugar gripped his brain. Witnesses at the initial accident scene noted his red-orange eyes, his repeated circling of his truck, his bewildered questions. What happened? Who hit me? What's going on? He was not fleeing malice. He was a man in crisis, possibly instinctively driving toward help, toward a hospital. The minor accident occurred when Mr. Herring, in his disoriented state, ran a red light and collided with a semi-truck. It was not a violent, high-speed crash. No one was seriously injured. Damage was minimal. The semi-truck driver and other witnesses, including a corrections officer, assessed the situation. The officer, drawing on his training, recognized signs of a medical emergency rather than intoxication. Yet perceptions varied. Some speculated alcohol, though evidence proved otherwise. Enter Hannah Payne, then a 21-year-old white woman, a college student working part-time at a clothing store, engaged to be married, with no prior criminal record. She described herself as a good Samaritan, someone eager to do the right thing. Perhaps in her mind, she saw an opportunity to intervene, to assert control in a chaotic moment. Psychology tells us that such impulses can stem from a need for agency, a belief in one's moral superiority, or even unconscious biases that paint certain individuals as threats. Members of the jury, consider the background here. A young woman who, days before the incident, had texted friends jokingly about her gun, saying she'd pull it if necessary. Was this bravado? A sign of overconfidence in her ability to handle danger? Whatever the root, whether ego, fear, or a misguided sense of civic duty, it set the stage for catastrophe. Miss Payne was not involved in the accident. She was a bystander, safely in her Jeep. Yet, when Mr. Herring, after waiting 15 to 20 minutes in confusion, drove away, she made a fateful decision. She pursued him, not to offer aid, not to call for medical help, but to chase him down as if she were law enforcement. Listen closely to the evidence from her own calls to emergency dispatch. She reported the hit-and-run calmly at first, providing details. But when the dispatcher explicitly instructed her, multiple times, not to follow, not to chase for safety reasons, Ms. Payne disregarded those warnings. "We actually do not want you to chase him," the dispatcher said clearly. "We just want you to be safe." Yet Ms. Payne persisted, claiming she was merely following at a distance to get the license plate. In reality, witnesses and evidence showed she aggressively pursued for over a mile, cutting off Mr. Herring's truck at the intersection of Forest Parkway and Riverdale Road, blocking him in so he could not move. Imagine Mr. Herring's fear in that moment, members of the jury. Trapped, confused, his medical episode worsening, confronted by an armed stranger yelling commands. Miss Payne exited her vehicle with her personal firearm drawn, a gun she carried, a symbol of her perceived power. She approached his driver's side window aggressively, according to eyewitnesses who captured parts of the confrontation on cell phone video. She yelled at him to get out of the car, reached in, punched him through the open window, and attempted to physically drag him out. One witness described her reaching in and shooting the man without provocation. The confrontation escalated rapidly because of her actions. Mr. Herring, unarmed, disoriented, posed no lethal threat. He had no weapon, made no violent advance beyond defensive reactions in his trapped state. Yet Ms. Payne, holding all the power, the gun, the initiative, fired a single shot into his lower left chest as he sat in his seat. In the immediate aftermath, her second call to dispatch revealed a shift. Crying, claiming self-defense, saying he tried to grab my gun and that he pulled the trigger. But physical evidence contradicted this. Miss Payne had no injuries, no bruises, her clothes pristine. Mr. Herring, dying in his seat, had no opportunity to attack as described. Body camera footage from arriving officers captured her emotional state, including statements that would haunt her, implications that he deserved it. Police arrived to a heartbreaking scene. Mr. Herring slumped, bleeding fatally from the abdomen wound, pronounced dead shortly after at the hospital. Ms. Payne was questioned on site. Her accounts were inconsistent, claiming self-defense one moment, uncertainty the next. She described Mr. Herring lunging, knocking her phone, grabbing her, daring her to shoot. But witnesses painted a different picture. She was the aggressor, the one who initiated physical contact, who escalated with deadly force. Delve deeper into the psychology, members of the jury. What drives a person to ignore explicit instructions from authorities? To arm herself and confront a confused elderly man over a traffic infraction? Experts in criminal psychology might point to diffusion of responsibility reversed, or rather, an overassumption of it. Ms. Payne appointed herself enforcer, perhaps fueled by a hero complex, perhaps by racial dynamics that cannot be ignored in our nation's history. Though prosecutors noted no explicit racial motive, the optics of a white woman pursuing and killing a black man in a citizen's arrest echo painful precedents. Emotionally, consider Mr. Herring's final terror, trapped, shot by a stranger for leaving a minor accident while in medical distress. The case lingered for years, delayed by COVID, by defense motions, building anguish for Mr. Herring's family. His sisters, Vicky and Jacqueline, spoke of lost Christmases, birthdays, family gatherings, grandchildren who would never know their grandfather's warmth. On one side of the packed courtroom in June 2024, though trial occurred in December 2023, delays pushed sentiments forward, grieving relatives. On the other, Ms. Payne's supporters claiming good intentions. Prosecutors laid it bare. This was not justice, it was ego. Kenneth Herring, who was unarmed and minding his own business, was chased down, detained, shot, and murdered, they argued. You don't get the death penalty for committing a traffic offense. They played the dispatch recordings. Her calm pursuit, yelling, scuffle, gunshot, then tears. One of the trial's most poignant moments, Ms. Payne taking the stand, handed a replica gun to demonstrate. Shaking before you. The jury, she reenacted her version. Mr. Herring grabbing her wrist, pulling the gun toward himself, his fingers allegedly on the trigger. But cross-examination exposed choices. She could have stayed in her car, waited for police mere minutes away. Instead, she escalated. When asked what she learned, she sobbed. That not everybody is going to have a reaction that you think they're going to have, and that clearly trying to do the right thing is not the right answer. She vowed never to help anyone again. Prosecutors highlighted her pre-incident texts about the gun, her refusal to de-escalate. After days of testimony, witnesses describing her aggression, videos showing the confrontation, medical evidence of diabetic shock, the jury deliberated briefly. Guilty on all counts. Malice murder, 2 felony murders, aggravated assault, false imprisonment, weapons charges. Sentencing brought raw emotion. Mr. Herring's family pleaded for life without parole, sharing irreplaceable loss. Ms. Payne's supporters begged mercy, citing her youth, lack of intent. The judge imposed life with possibility of parole plus consecutive years, ensuring decades behind bars. The verdict, Reflections on Human Nature and the Law. Members of the jury, or rather, viewers of this recounting, we have examined the evidence exhaustively. Hannah Payne was not a police officer. She had no authority. Yet she chased, trapped, armed herself, and shot an unarmed, medically distressed man. Kenneth Herring's death was no accident of fate. It was the foreseeable outcome of vigilante overreach. This case exposes the darkest facets of human nature, the hubris that blinds us to our limitations, the fear that morphs into fury, the moral certainty that justifies horror. Psychologically, it warns against the bystander intervention gone awry when good intentions pave roads to hell. Legally, it reaffirms citizens' arrests are narrow, deadly force rarer still. If roles reversed, if a black woman chased and shot a white grandfather in distress, would justice have been swifter? The question lingers, underscoring biases we must confront. Ultimately, the law prevailed. Guilty. Life with parole. But true justice eludes us while families grieve. Kenneth Herring's life mattered. His death demands we choose restraint over ego, empathy over enforcement. Let this be a philosophical reckoning. In a civilized society, we surrender personal vengeance to the system. When we don't, innocence dies. May Kenneth rest in peace. May we learn.